Okay. I know that I said the 1.5 format was crazy, but trust me, the set 4 format for the Digimon TCG is even crazier. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven Rodriguez. I'm your true champion, and today we are going to talk about the top 5 meta decks of the Digimon TCG Set 4 format. What this means is I'm going to do sort of like a comprehensive analysis, if you will, of the high-performing decks from the past weekend's official webcam events, local events, mat events, really all the events that I've partook in and seen the results of. I'm going to present that list to you guys and talk about each individual deck so that way you guys can be informed as to what decks are performing well and what decks you might need to be better prepared for if you want to take down any events yourselves in the future. Quick little reminder, by the way, that this video will not be me talking about every single archetype that exists and just which one is the best 5. No. This will be me talking about the most played decks, why they're the most played, and overall which ones I think are better than others. If you guys want to hear my thoughts about every single archetype that exists or want me to elaborate on anything I say in this video, be sure to follow me over on Twitch. Link is down below. I talk about this game non-stop and play it a lot over there, so be sure to stop by and we can have a nice little chat. And if you find anything in this video enjoyable or helpful, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. And be sure to let me know down below in the comments what deck is your favorite to play in the Digimon TCG. But with all that being said, Great Legend really shook up the format for the Digimon TCG, so we have a ton to talk about. Let's go ahead and get started with these top 5 decks. Alright, before we actually get into this top 5, I did have one honorable mention to share with you guys. It's kind of a selfish pick, but I do think it highlights a really cool point about this format. The honorable mention I have for you is, of course, going to be one of my favorite decks of all time, Yellowshine Greymon. And while I do plan on talking about Yellow quite a bit in this video, this is just the beginning. Trust me. Now, while it is true that Yellow got a ton of great support this set, I mean, we got the Red Rise, Valder Arm, Bushy Agumon, Lucamon, Angelmon, I mean, just tons of bangers. People really weren't talking about those bangers in comparison to Shine Greymon. I mean, he did get Red Rise, we did get some new Tamers, and of course, Valder Arm is a natural inclusion if you want to, but people just didn't think, oh, Shine Greymon is just the best Yellow deck now. No. There's another deck we'll talk about later that's clearly better. But there is an interesting thing actually that happened with the Set 4 format that I think actually makes Shine a lot better. Because every single deck now has like these crazy burst turns that can just gain a bunch of advantage for them or just outright kill their opponents, people are so fearful right now. I mean, they will spend like 3 or 4 turns just hiding in the raising area and build up like little blockers or something in their battle area until they feel ready or prepared to strike against the opponent. And while that's really good against like super aggressive, like high rolly type decks that can just kill you in one turn, it's actually really bad against mid-rangey / setup decks because that amount of time is so good for them. And one of the best mid-rangey / setup decks in the entire game is, of course, Yellowshine Greymon. And this sort of observation I had was like the reason I chose to play Shine Greymon over anything else in my first official webcam event for this format. And barring a couple of awkward draws against like unfavorable matchups or just awkward situations, the deck performed super well, and I think a lot of people took notice and started playing it a lot more after that. I'm not saying I caused it to happen, I'm just saying it felt like a natural kind of realization is, oh, people are actually playing the game slower even though we have faster cards, so because the game is slower, a deck like Shine Greymon just is obviously really good. So I just think that even though the game is really fast in terms of what effects we have, the actual games themselves play out really slowly, and you have like a couple of turns of freedom to kind of set up a couple Tamers, get your ultimates ready to go, and then drop a big Shine Greymon against your opponent and say, well, now what are you gonna do? And if they don't have a response to your first one, you could evolve it into a Valder Arm or just build another one, so that way when they do anything fishy, you can instantly deal with it and move on from there. So again, while Shine Greymon is nowhere near as popular as these other decks to warrant being on this list, I definitely think it shines a light, pun intended, on what this format actually looks like and plays like. Even though we have these big powerful burst and just wombo combo decks, you play very fearfully, very respectfully, and you bide your time until it's time to go in for the kill or go in for some big turn to gain a bunch of advantage out of nowhere. That little rant aside, let's talk about the actual top 5 meta decks of the format. Coming in at number 5, we have none other than Blue Imperial Dramon, or I'll put a a little slash right here as well and say Rookie Rush. Basically any kind of blue deck that likes to be aggressive to win. I know this is like contradicting what I just said about the format, but I promise you this is the only deck that does this on here, and they're still good because a lot of these decks do require some amount of setup, but these decks have Hammer Spark, so they can set up really fast or just pressure really fast with their rookies and then get in for just gigantic amounts of damage with things like Ancient Garu or of course the Imperial Dramon combo to just win the game outright. And while these decks did not gain a bunch of stuff, I mean, Imperial literally just got Lobomon, and then the Rookie Rush decks got the hybrid package of Ancient Garu, Lobo Promo, and Lobo. These decks do still have really solid game plans that can definitely get tons of wins, especially against decks like Yellow War Greymon that actually self-burn themselves and make it even easier for them to kill them. Now, even though these decks are powerful and are still super consistent and of course can just outright win a game in like 2 turns flat, they do falter because if their first like wave of swings doesn't kill their opponent and their entire board gets board wiped by, I don't know, Nidhogg or anything yellow, it can be really hard for them to bounce back and actually come back in the game. And while it's really nice to kill your opponent and just win the game by doing some kind of crazy combo, it's not the most sustainable thing to do in an 8+ round event like an official webcam tournament. So while this deck is very cool, I feel like the people that play it are only playing it because they think it's like a meta call and not really because it's like the best deck. And for that reason, I'm putting it lower on the list. It is powerful, it can see tons of wins, but I just don't think it's nearly as consistent or popular as the rest. Coming in at number 4, we have everyone's favorite deck to hate, Yellow-Red Security Control. Yeah, I know every time I mention Yellow-Red Security Control in a video, people go, ugh, not this deck again. Yep, it's back, and it's even more annoying if you can believe it. Thanks to the inclusion of Valderarm as well as Lucamon, not only for extra removal but extra recovery whenever you want, this deck has even more staying power and can outlast pretty much anything. And it's a really good meta call against a lot of the top decks like Yellow War Greymon, Blue Imperial, and even Purple to a certain extent. So it's no surprise why the handful of people that are still playing this deck are doing so well in the events they're playing it in, because it is just that strong. Now, that being said, the reason why this deck isn't any higher on the list, even though I do think it's just blatantly powerful, is because once again, only a handful of people are seriously committing to playing it in events. And even though those people are doing really, really well, I don't see the popularity of this deck increasing that drastically as time goes on. That might change in the future when we get some really, really powerful cards for this strategy, but for now, and the sake of this video, it's coming in at number 4, and I think it's gonna stay there for a while. Coming in at number 3, we have Purple. That's it, just Purple. Yeah, there's tons of Purple decks right now, actually. You, of course, have your Metal Garurumon decks. You have your cool Plutomon decks that are, like, abusing blue cards or Necrophobia to get some really powerful Cerberusmon Werewolf mode turns. And you have even Devamon decks to try to flash that big boy into play to harass your opponent's hand or, of course, harass their security stack. And even though all these decks are different, more or less, they're kind of doing the same thing, you know, play option cards for free or flash into play powerful Digimon for burst turns against the opponent kind of things. But overall, I do think the best and most consistent one out of these is Melga, and it just so happens that I think it's also the most played out of all of them. So I'm mainly going to talk about Melga in this video, but the other ones are kind of taken into consideration when it comes to making my judgment on how good Purple is in this format. Purple Melga is definitely one of the shining stars of the purple color right now. It's a super awesome way to abuse the already powerful option cards like Trump Sword, but with the inclusion of new cards like Hell's Gate, Nailbone, and Deathclaw, you have tons of utility that you can just use to take over boards against your opponent or build your own boards to win the game outright. Also, we're seeing some really cute Melga variants that are playing Necrophobia and Werewolf mode Cerberusmon to just get some fun burst turns with more powerful Digimon, so that way they don't need to necessarily wait till the end of the game to go for their big plays. They can do it a little bit earlier and even get more powerful things like Millenniumon or Anubismon online faster. That being said though, I feel like Purple is still having its problem that it's had for so long, which is it's trying to do all these intricate things like have 10 cards in trash or get like 2 level 4s in play at once. Like they're trying to do all of these crazy things to establish these really powerful plays that I don't really think are that powerful. You know, being able to call 2 dudes for free is really great, but unless you can do it and also kill your opponent, yellow decks and green decks are just gonna wipe your board and move on with their day. So I truly feel like even though purple is super consistent, super fast, and can do some really cool things, those things are not strong enough right now to actually win them games consistently. And honestly, until we get a card like Omnimon Zwart to really capitalize on all of purple's consistency, I don't really see a big payoff coming in anytime soon. Now, even though I'm kind of bagging on purple here towards the end, I do think it's a very solid strat, and you will probably play against purple every now and then when you go to events, so definitely have it in the back of your mind when it comes to building your deck, but don't be so afraid of it if it comes up. I don't really think like the things they do warrant like hard countering. They're just there and they are strong, but a lot of the decks do have ways around it. Coming in at number 2, we have green. Again, just like purple, there are so many different green variants out there. There's multiple reasons for that. People like certain variants over others, and of course, some people don't have access to things like green OTK because Promo Palmon is hard to come by or expensive for some people. But that's not stopping them from playing green. They're just sort of adapting to their situation, which I highly recommend in Digimon. Palmon is a luxury, it is not a necessity. Now, that being said, the green deck I am going to focus on actually isn't green OTK because personally, I don't really view it as the best one. The best one, in my opinion, is the one that utilizes Nidhogg properly, and that is Hercules Kabuterimon Nidhoggmon. Let me explain. Hercules Kabuterimon Nidhoggmon is, I think, the perfect combination of offense and defense. You have the powerful sword that is Hercules Kabuterimon, who can just chill in the raising area until it's time to do a big wombo pierce / controlling board damage against your opponent. That can also be paired with a Chaosmon to get an extra damage in there if you want to, but has a nice follow-up in case your opponent does counter you in the form of Nidhoggmon, where, oh, your opponent like attacked you a bunch and killed your Hercules Kabuterimon or Chaosmon in a single turn. Whatever will you do? Promote Rookie, evolve for 1, download into Blasto, and then boom, evolve into Nidhogg, clear their board, Bob's your uncle, game is yours. That is a super awesome series of plays that green will always do and always see some nice consistent wins with. This point, by the way, that I'm making about Nidhogg and Hercules Kabuterimon being my preferred version of the deck kind of brings about a problem that I think the deck is experiencing and why it's not number 1 on this list. Basically, it doesn't have a solved deck list. Like, there's no real best green deck in people's minds. It's really just built on personal preference as well as card pool, which one you actually choose to play. And for that reason, people just don't play it because they either can't build the version they think is the best, or they don't want to build the version that others think is the best. It's actually really weird. Because people either can't play the deck they want to, or don't have the cards to play the deck they think they want to, they just choose to not play green at all. And so its popularity is nowhere near as high as the number 1 deck, but it is still really strong, and people do acknowledge how strong it is, and of course they still use it, especially if they have the green OTK variant, which is the most popular one amongst green decks. I've personally had this struggle of like thinking, okay, what's the best green deck for me? Okay, is that the best green deck then, or is it just the best one in general? It's a really tough decision. It's hard to commit to playing green when it's like up in the air as to what you should or should not be playing. And for all those reasons and more, green is of course the second best deck in the set 4 format. But coming in at number 1, we have none other than Yellow War Greymon. Yes, I know it's no surprise, but I'm still going to rant a little bit about how crazy this deck actually is. Not only was Yellow the clear victor of set 4, thanks to cards like Lucemon, Valderarm, Blinding Ray, Bushiagumon, Angelwomon, War Greymon, the list goes on, we also got Pulsemon as the pre-release promo for Great Legend, and with that little yellow Sonic the Hedgehog came a ton of advantage and just burst potential for this deck. I mean, if you've ever been on the receiving end of a double Bushy / a double Pulse from your opponent playing yellow, you know just how outright stupid combos like that are. And on top of all of these crazy combos and plays, it's still a yellow deck. It has removal, it has sustainability in recovery. It can just overall out-advantage your opponents and get inevitable wins, not just outright burst type wins, which is just so hilarious. Now, all that being said, Yellow War Greymon is of course not unbeatable. It has a ton of weaknesses, the big one being It can't really do anything against stuff in the raising area. That's why you see people just like leaving their big Hercs, their other War Greymons, their Metal Garus in there before they can get value on them, because if they promoted them early, those dudes are dead, and so they're not going to get value. And it also burns itself to create a bunch of pressuring plays, either with Blinding Ray, Lopmons, or War Greymons, and so it can be kind of risky to go for those things against more aggressive decks like Imperial, Rookie Rush, or even to an extent Green OTK. But I think a really good yellow War Greymon pilot should have the utmost confidence in every single event they go to, especially if they're playing a really high recovery package that allows them to play around many of the hardships the deck has and gives them a nice sort of comeback mechanic if they ever get unlucky against like security checks with their War Greymon, for example. And for that reason and many others that I'm sure did not talk about but you guys will mention in the comments, War Greymon is the most meta deck in the Digimon TCG. Boom, there you guys go. That's it for my top 5 meta decks of the Digimon TCG. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. And if there's anything in this video you want me to elaborate on or just talk more about, feel free to follow me over on Twitch. I spend tons of time over there just chatting and playing this game, so stop by, ask a question live and in person, and hopefully get an answer from me. Links to my Twitch down below, as always. But with all that being said, I've been your true champion, Steven. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, and live well, and I will see you all next time. Peace.